to you about geeks. Now, I bet a lot of you know geeks. Some of you might even be geeks. I'm one. And I want to talk about geeks doing something important, helping advance the cause of human rights. And we know that Silicon Valley is powered on geeks, right? Inventing things, coming up with new products, and making lots of money, right? That's what we're supposed to be doing. But I think geeks have other things they need to do, and one thing that I think they should be involved in is human rights. You know, all over the world, terrible human rights abuses are going on and have been going on for years. And it's really rare that the people responsible are actually held accountable. That's called impunity. They get away with killing people, disappearing people, doing terrible things. And so what if geeks could actually help do something to fight the kind of people who come by and take away your father or your mother or your brother or your sister and you never see them again? So that's what I want to talk about. And there's a group here in Silicon Valley, in Palo Alto, of geeks that are working on this very issue. And I'm going to take you to this country, Guatemala. It's next to Mexico. It's a 7-hour flight. That's closer than many parts of the United States, like Portland, Maine. And yet, Guatemala had a terrible civil conflict that led to many people dying. And we've learned in Guatemala that they have a new use of a word that we all know, disappear. In Guatemala, disappear is a transitive verb. It's done to people. People get disappeared. And that's wrong. So what can geeks do about something like that? Well, with the right opportunity, we can help pull the veil of secrecy away from disappearances, bring out the truth, and use that truth to pursue justice. But we need the opportunity. So what happened is 5 years ago, we got that opportunity. Now, as part of the peace deal in Guatemala in the mid-90s, the national police, the secret police force, was disbanded. And they had been responsible for disappearing thousands, if not tens of thousands of people. And people thought that all the records of those disappearances had disappeared as well. But it wasn't true. And 5 years ago, they discovered 80 million pages of archives. It turns out that secret policemen are very bureaucratic. And to prove that they're good at being bad, they have to document that extensively. And so the Guatemalan government found this and went, oh my God, what do we do with 80 million pages? And what's in there? And we said, sounds like a medium-sized asbestos litigation here. You know, we know how to scan documents. But the first thing we had to do was find out, was there anything important in there? Was this 80 million pay stubs and expense reports? Or was there something important going on? So some of our geeks, and we've got a couple of geeks that are like math PhD geeks, Megan Price and Christian Lum, they helped come up with a sampling mechanism. And the first sampling mechanism we did is we picked 1,500 documents out of those 80 million. And more than 10% dealt with a human rights violation or a disappearance. So those documents were important. The Guatemalans were able to raise some money on that and hire a bunch of people to scan those documents. And the people they hired were mainly young people who had grown up with stories of family members that had disappeared. And they come to work every day wondering, is today the day that we're going to find the document of what happened to my father or my aunt or my cousin? And they processed millions of documents. And just last year, they got to the point where they said, we've learned some things, we can do something, we can file a case. And the case was for Edgar Fernando Garcia, a young man, a labor organizer, father of a young daughter, married, who was disappeared more than 20 years ago. And through this process of sampling the documents, we found a few hundred documents that dealt with his disappearance. And the courts got a case filed. They arrested 2 police officers. And one of our statisticians, Daniel Guzman, testified in that case. And these 2 officers were both sentenced to 40 years in prison for this disappearance. And part of Daniel's testimony was not only were these documents pretty ordinary for most documents in the archive, but they were much more likely to be seen by higher-ups. And the judges said to the prosecutors, you guys go out there and find who is responsible for conducting this campaign. This year, the new Attorney General of Guatemala, Claudia Paz y Paz, arrested the former head of the National Police during the time period when this gentleman was disappeared. And right now, we're preparing a case against him for conducting a campaign of disappearance of thousands of people. So, when you think about science and technology, and when you think about geeks, don't just think about gadgets or making money. Think about geeks that help get to the heart of things, that try to shed light on dark deeds, bring to families news of loved ones that were disappeared, and maybe sometimes get justice against the people responsible.